Good evening, Browns fans, and welcome to OBR Weekly. My name's Barry. That's the legend. That's Fred Greetham. He's been covering the Browns for quite a while out over there in Berea. How you doing, Fred?
Doing great. Glad to get back in the saddle.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the Browns are back in the saddle, most certainly, after whooping the tails of the Pittsburgh freaking Steelers on Thursday Night Football. We are here to talk about it on OBR Weekly, as it's a Monday night at 8 o'clock. And as you guys know, if you're hanging out with us here on Monday night, this show is powered by your comments and questions. I keep a sharp eye on the YouTube and Twitch chat rooms throughout the show, and we just jump on your questions and comments. And that's what we do. That's the whole focus of the show. And if you guys don't have questions and comments, Fred and I just sort of pack up and go home and, do whatever it is we normally do on our Monday night. So please hit us up with your questions and comments so that we have good things to talk about in the YouTube and the Twitch chat rooms. So we hope to hear from you as soon as possible. And Fumble 13 is starting us off with a young lady displaying a major catch and saying woof, woof, woof. And we had a lot to woof about on Thursday night, Fred. Fred, the display in New Orleans versus the display in Cleveland the other night couldn't have been more different from the lackadaisical play that we saw in New Orleans to the inspired play that we saw against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I wrote a little column sort of giving Kevin Stefanski credit for helping to turn that around. What do you think? Did you sense anything from the locker room or from the team heading into that contest against Pittsburgh that led you to believe that they were going to come out and do what they did?
Well, I don't know specifically anything. That's the type of game the Browns seem to rise up and play well. I mean, it's indicated Thursday nights. I think they're 7-0. It's too bad the NFL flexed them out of that Bengals game,
Right.
but that is a way. But as far as no, the thing about it is that's disappointing at this point in the season is that's kind of what we expected all year. Now they have shown they can play toe to toe with the best in the division, the Ravens, and beat them. Same thing with the Steelers. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, to be honest, of the three, I thought the Bengals game was the probably a better chance to win. They really should be
Right.
3-0 in the division. So, when you look at this, it's in there. And Stefanski seems to do his best work when the chips are down. When everybody's talking about losing the locker room and they've given up. And I saw even on our forums and water cooler things like Garrett's quit and they've given up on Stefanski and so forth. And then they play like this, very inspired. You just
Mm-hmm.
wish you could, bottle that and do that each week. I mean, like I said before the season, I didn't see how I thought any team in this division could get first. I felt any team could get last. I didn't expect it to be the Browns.
Right.
But, when you see that, rather than just, I know a lot of people would rather them lose and get the high draft pick. I think this is important to win these games, and I don't really care where they end up in the draft because I don't want a long-term overhaul. I think you can
Right.
get some key additions and fortify certain areas as opposed to starting all over again. And, when you're in your division, you have 3 more games in the division against each team. And I really think you can set yourself up as far as measuring where you are in this division. Now you're going to go over to Pittsburgh in a couple of weeks, and that's usually a house of horrors. I've been over
Yeah.
there so many times. It's usually where they end the season, and it's usually where they fire the coach and the general manager. So that's why it's must see. You have to go. This time it's with several games to go, but you know I was inspired by the way they played. Not so much. I thought they had that game totally in control. And then I thought for a minute I was in Pittsburgh when the Steelers play that Renegade song and everything falls off the hinges for the opponent. And that's exactly what happened with the Browns, except it was at home. They gave up the touchdown. Then, like 2 plays later, strip sack fumble. And like within a minute, they went from an 18-6 lead to a 19-18 deficit. And you thought, oh boy. And
That's it.
then, so
Yeah.
much unlike the Browns this year, they went down and won the game. They even threw the interception, which you thought was the kiss of death. But then the defense comes up with a 3-and-out.
Right.
They pressure the court or the punter, he shanks it, and then they go 45 yards in the snow and win the game. Even with a drop touchdown pass by Njoku, they come back and do that. Or maybe that was a little earlier on the previous drive. But, it was inspiring. If you're going to be out till 1 in the morning and then stay there till 2 or 3 in the morning writing about it, you might as well, have a positive to say. And so we know
And then
it's in
driving
there
home in
with the
that muck.
Browns. We know it's
Yep.
in there. It's just, you want to see it. You like to see them come back with another one next Monday night.
Yeah, exactly. Then, unfortunately, the Browns have a short week flying back from Denver and going into the, as you put it, the House of Horrors there in Pittsburgh. Um, so that's unfortunate. And what's equally unfortunate is that they have to go up against, these same Steelers who, quite honestly, they were kind of embarrassing, after that game. TJ Watt, who made such a big deal about losing the Defensive Player of the Year last year, did absolutely nothing against Jack Conklin. And Pickens was just an embarrassment, what he had to say about the team that he lost to, after the game, saying they felt that they lost to an inferior team and all that. It's just a complete show of disrespect. You hope that, when they face those Steelers in a couple of weeks here, that they don't let the Steelers, sort of back up those words, which were, they both teams played under the same conditions. Fred, the rivalry, I think, just got stoked up a little bit
Yeah,
on Thursday night.
it's good to see from some aspect. We haven't seen a rivalry for a long time with those two teams because it was been so lopsided. But, one thing I took away with the words, was Myles Garrett. It showed me how much that bothered him, what Watt said. I mean, he brought it up. Sure, he was asked about it during the week, and he said, I never, said anything about not having the trophy at my house or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then after the game, and he kind of went off again about declaring he's the best. I mean, I like to see that because if that motivates him to stay there, because there's been a lot of questions. I know he gets double, triple teamed, but he sometimes disappears. We talked about the Saints game. He was going up against a rookie left tackle, and he didn't even have a tackle. He wasn't even
Right.
involved in anything on the stat sheet. And I realize even if you're getting double, triple teamed, that should free up other guys to make plays, but nobody was really making plays. So, I
Right.
mean, I was a little bit taken that it obviously bothered Myles Garrett much more than even people let on. And I don't know what it is, but we've seen this before about the Steelers. I can't remember some of the guys over the years that spouted off, about the Browns. The Browns are going to be the Browns. Was that
Right.
Claypool?
Juju Smith Schuster.
Juju Smith Schuster. Yeah, I mean, it's like, don't you understand we're in 2024 now where you say anything, even on, if we had a guy on our show that said something, it would still make it
Right.
everywhere. That's just the way it is nowadays. So, um, yeah, I think if anything, it would motivate the Browns to not go over there and lie down,
Right.
like, especially if they don't do well in Denver, that they would still pick themselves back up and go out, the pride and so forth, and trying to back it up. I've said all along, we saw last year and go, how in the world the Steelers make the playoffs with no
Right.
offense, with Kenny Pickett and what they had going? And the credit was they're the same thing. They were the same thing the other night,
Mm-hmm.
and it just takes some offense, and you're seeing it. The Jameis Winston's getting the job done, and you just it just makes you upset when you think the team gets off to a 1-7 start, 1-6 start. That if you would have pulled the string a little bit, maybe won a game or two. This, even though you might have a losing record, if you're sitting here at 5-6 or 4-7, it's a whole different world. And that's only
Right.
one game or two game. You got all these guys in the schedule just at the wrong time. It's not who you play. Sometimes it's when you play them. Think of the
Exactly.
Giants, how bad they are now, but that happened to be like the best game of the year for them. And the Raiders and the Saints were terrible at the beginning. Now they're on a roll. And all it would have taken is maybe a change of quarterback for a series or two in those games.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is now that the Browns fans have seen, in these last couple of games, they saw the Saints game, but they also saw the Ravens game, they saw the Steelers game. They know what this team is capable of doing, when they're hitting on all cylinders. And when they don't see that, then they get very, very upset. You know, the roller coaster ride with this team, I think, through the back half of the season is going to be something else because we know what this team is capable of doing. And when they don't deliver, fans are going to be very upset. And they're going to be very upset at the coaching staff. They're going to be very upset at the players because they know how good this team can be. And I think it's going to be, quite a ride. If you're out there listening, watching, if you're in the chat room, please hit us up with questions. We've got a couple saved up here, but we want to hear about what you want to talk about, and the questions you want to answer, or the comments you'd like us to respond to. This is your show, so take it where you want it to go. Here is a question from Fumble13. And he asked, were you surprised that DTR didn't take a few more RPO snaps on Thursday? Do you think that the weather might have had something to do with that, Fred? Trying to keep DTR off the field, and maybe not running the ball out of the quarterback position quite as much.
Yeah, especially in the second half. I mean, I know that you could make the case that Justin Fields, by inserting him into the game to run, that jump started the Steelers. They really weren't doing anything until he took off with that 30-yard run. So some people think with the snow, you might be able to run a little better because you know where you're going and the defense doesn't. But I don't know. I mean, I like the way Winston's playing, and I don't know if you need to play DTR just to see him play. If you feel like he can make a major difference, and to your point, if the footing was good, he's more to me at this stage of his career a runner than a passer. And I just don't know if I want to see more of Winston. I want to see him play this out. I mean, everybody's like, well, Jameis Winston, everybody knows what he is. I'm writing a story. I don't know when I'm going to use it, a column or so about can he be the answer here? He's a year older than Watson. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and I was looking today, he's fifth ranked overall in the NFL in QBR, which is ESPN's rankings. Now he's only had 4 starts, so he just qualified this week.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, when Watson's still sitting down dead last with a 22. It's much more, the QBR is much more involved than the NFL's quarterback rating. He's 5th overall, tied with Brock Purdy. This past weekend, he was number 3 with an 80.0. I
Right.
mean, he is what he is, but he's doing pretty well. And I don't know when you look at, if you have recordings or, because you sat here and listened to me talk before the season, what did I say about Watson? He just has to play average. If he can
Right.
just play average, the Browns can make the playoffs. Did he play average? No. He
No, he did
played
not.
rock bottom, worst in the NFL. Is Winston playing the best? No. It's surprising he's ranked as high as he is. We'll see with more games where he ends up, but he's given him a chance to win games.
Hmm.
The defense really collapsed against the Saints and missed field goals, stuff like that. But as far as he's moving the ball, he's showing me by taking the team down on that winning drive, that was impressive because Watson had two chances to do that against the Giants and the Raiders, and he failed on both of them. They weren't all his fault. But you see what I'm getting at here is that if the defense is just above average, we were expecting it to be top 10. They haven't. They've been more in the middle of the pack, and special
Right.
teams has been more in the middle of the pack or below. The offense didn't need to be wide open, but the offense is playing well enough now. If you can get the defense and special teams to do their bit, I think they can win. And so you
Right.
got to make some adjustments, but all things being equal, that's why I want to see, toe to toe against the best team. And you're going to see them. You're playing the Broncos, and that's another team. If you'd have played the Broncos at the beginning of the year when they were struggling with a rookie quarterback, now it's kind of like the Jaden Daniels scenario where he's playing really well. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I want to see how far off the Browns are, really, a realistic view. They dug too
Right.
deep of a hole really to make a move realistically, but it is. I want to see them match up and see where they're at when they're playing hard and giving it their all. You saw, like you mentioned, the Saints game. What happened? Then you come back and do this. So that boils down to consistency. I want to see some consistency day in, day out, week in, week out.
That would be nice. That would be nice. World's Fastest here saying one of the problems with playing poorly is that rot spreads. We will never know exactly what we gave away with our poor start, but this is our chance to step up and show everyone what's next. And that kind of ties into a statement you were making, Fred, about not caring that much about the draft pick, wanting to see good quality play down the stretch because according to what everyone is saying now, sort of what we've been alluding to is that short of a catastrophic failure of this team down the stretch, we're going to stay status quo. Jimmy's going to keep the cell phone in his pocket. He's not going to go to DEFCON 5 with the front office, which we don't want to see, trying to reboot the entire team again. Which I don't want to see. Some people want to see it. I don't want to see it. Going DEFCON 5 with the team again. Um, but it's sort of what you said as well. Just trying to create some positivity, some consistency down the stretch leading into 2025, and not having this be a death spiral, going down the rest of the year.
Well, I'll say something else to that is that I think most of us have seen enough of Deshaun Watson, but I don't know. Maybe privately in the front office, they come to the same conclusion. They're not going to say anything publicly, but if Winston plays well, continue out, that kind of puts that all to rest. That there's no question who the returning quarterback is starting. Not
Mm-hmm.
like it was last year. Well, as soon as he's healthy, he's the starter. I already got that sense, that when Andrew Berry didn't answer that way, he just said, well, we got to talk about him getting healthy first. That's as far as he went. So, this is a chance to kind of put that to rest in case that it isn't put to rest. You got to deal with the money. You got to deal with all that other stuff. And Jack Duffin's laid out, some of the scenarios you can do there. You can research that. They can play around this. You just got to get this solved. And even if it's a 1, 2, 3 short time, it would be great if Jameis Winston plays like Joe Flacco the rest of the way, but he's 30 years old.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Um, so, I'm all for it. Chad is kind of quiet tonight. You guys out there, stir it up a little bit. We react to you guys. So, mess with us a little bit here. Feel free to ask us pretty much any question that's on your mind. Or, don't make me go hot take on you to try to get a reaction from you here. So hit us up with any questions you got, any comments you got, whatever. World's Fastest Fat Man's doing his job here. He's trying to create some questions for us. I don't know anything about basketball, but I do know something about electricity. I got a degree in electrical engineering, and I know that electricity doesn't just fall out of a socket because air is a very poor conductor of electricity. Did you know, Fred, that they tried in the early days to be able to conduct electricity via radio waves because they didn't like the wires all over everything? And they tried to transmit electricity by radio waves, so sort of sending it via air, but they were unsuccessful in doing so. So
Yeah, I think
there's your
Benjamin
answer, Fat
Franklin
Man.
had a better thing. You got a line,
Yeah, but exactly. But that's he had to tie a line to the kite. He couldn't just transmit the electricity by air. That's why
Exactly.
it doesn't fall out of the socket. It's a poor conductor. So there
And
you go.
a couple of the things I saw a comment about, sometimes quarterbacks kind of reinvent themselves later in their career. We're seeing it with Sam Darnold. It's not really later, but he was in that draft with Baker Mayfield that year. I thought he was the best shot coming out of the four that were being talked about.
Yep.
And I was talking about the ratings. Do you know when I said that Winston was ranked fifth, two of them ahead of him are Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. And when you look at that, I'm an old timer, but Jim Plunkett, he was drafted in 1971, first overall
Mm-hmm.
pick by the Patriots. He struggled and struggled for 8 or 9 years, bounced around. He
Right.
landed with the Raiders and he became a Hall of Fame quarterback,
Yep.
won 2 Super Bowls. And that wasn't until he was like near 30, if not 30. Another guy, Rich Gannon, he wasn't first round pick. He was like a fourth round pick, but he was a backup for like 8, 10 years. He ended up playing 18 years. The last 10 years, he was like a 3-time all pro quarterback, MVP, went to the Super Bowl. There are a lot of stories like that. The guys that had the talent just sometimes were in the wrong situation or they didn't mature. And that's what I think as a Browns fan, you can hold on to a little bit of the talent. There's no question, Winston was the overall number one pick in 2015. He was a Heisman Trophy winner as a freshman at Florida State. He's always had the
Mm-hmm.
talent, but it might have been maturity, it might have been or immaturity, might have been a lot of different things that maybe now after sitting on the bench for 3, 4 years with the Saints, you know, maybe this will be his time. I don't know, but I mean, he's a fun guy to be around, and a lot of people, I think, take that as being silly or not serious. But he's dead serious when it comes to playing, and he's
Mm-hmm.
looking at this as a real legitimate opportunity for him. And I think he wants, if the Browns don't commit to him, he's trying to find a way to go somewhere else next year.
Right.
So I just think it'd be great if he continued to play well and the Browns don't have to go all in to try to, at this point, would Kirk Cousins be an upgrade on him or any of the guys that you have to go out and break the bank again to try to acquire, a franchise quarterback?
Right. Well, Winston keeps going the way he's going. We may have to break the bank for him. His price is going up if he keeps going well. We got some takes here. I stirred things up out there in the chat, so thanks, guys. Appreciate the takes and the questions pouring in here. Let's go to chat username. Chat says Watson was a poison to this team since day one. We have good core and can rebuild with a framework that does not include number 4. The comments about Watson aside, do you agree, Fred, that this team does not need a complete rebuild. They can, is this fixable in your opinion on one off season to get this team back into playoff contention?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I've been given hope by the young wide receivers. I really felt, even though Amari Cooper was dropping passes and not really looking like himself, I felt like he was really the only qualified, or not qualified, but game breaking type wide receiver on this roster, because I understand the Jerry Judy. They got him mostly, in my opinion, in potential, but they've been rewarded in the last few games. When Cooper's moved on, he is stepping up and he's doing things that he was criticized in Denver. One of the reasons they wanted to move on from him, he's making contested catches and he's
Mm-hmm.
and he's making plays. He was huge in that Steelers game in the snow down the stretch on that fourth down catch, and then the set up the game winning score. And I mean, he's making plays. And you can also say that about Cedric Tillman till he got hurt the other night. And Elijah Moore. Those three guys are showing me more individually than I had seen at all when they were
Mm-hmm.
out there with Watson. Once DTR even came in against the Bengals, he got Tillman going. And then Winston's got them all three going. And so I think they could use another top end wide receiver. I mean, a guy
Yeah.
like T. Higgins would look really good, with this group, or somebody, even if you draft one. But Njoku, he's a legitimate playmaker. I would concentrate probably on the offensive line, try to get
Right.
younger and players right now that could step in. I don't know with some of the evaluations or the ages and so forth, but I think if Winston's your quarterback and he's protected, I think that they can move the ball on the ground and in the air. And so I don't agree with the idea that you just, if you get a first round pick, you got to use the first round to get a quarterback. If there's nothing there, I don't think you can take a chance to just draft one to draft one. I
No.
mean, until I hear different, I'm going to go with what Daniel Jeremiah told me, that there was no game changing, no questions asked quarterback, in his opinion, before he really did a deep dive. And there's probably some guys out there, but some of the names, I watched Jalen Milroe the other night. I think he needs much more time. And it seems like, you're almost seeing a little bit more guys that stay in college. I think Bo Nix had like 70 starts in college. I think he's
Right.
24. That kind of uses as your development or your minor league, so to say. I'm not saying you have to wait till they're 24, but there is something to be said when they get that many starts. Nowadays, guys get 1 year, they get 12, 13 starts, and then they declare for the draft and they get drafted in the first round and they immediately throw them in and they say, oh, they're a bust. Well,
Right.
unless they're in a right situation. So right now, that to me is a veteran quarterback, whether it's Winston or somebody from some other team, allows you to pivot and continue to compete. To me, the defense has dropped back. Whether they figured out Schwartz, they got old all at once, or a combination or whatever, I thought bringing most of those guys back was the right thing. I don't know what it is, but they're not the top end defense that you were expecting. Now, the other night, they really held the Steelers to 13 points. That turnover, really was on the offense when you had a strip sack fumble on the 20 some yard line. But I would like, if they can hold their opponent, around 20, I think that gives the offense it. And early in the season, they were doing that. But under Deshaun Watson, the offense couldn't score over 16, 18 points.
Right.
That's why they lost.
Right. You were talking about Jerry Judy a little bit. I brought a question from Ask the Insiders from WSU 99. We've got more questions in the chat that I'll get to here in a sec. But his question was, can Jerry Judy be a solid number one wide receiver for the Browns Seems like Judy's elevated his game since Winston took over, hoping he can be that guy for the Browns. And some of our insiders wrote back sort of mixed reviews for Judy as as a premier, true number one right wide receiver. That he really needs a strong, cast of characters around him to really stand out. What are your thoughts on that, Fred?
I kind of agree. That's what I said when I thought Amari Cooper, a guy like that, the all pro, perennial. Judy's a great number two. I think he was an upgrade, obviously, from Donovan Peoples Jones or even Elijah
Mm-hmm.
Moore last year. But I was a little skeptical when they traded Cooper to move him into the number one. He's going to get his chance here, but if you could get a free agent or even draft somebody in the first round, if that's the direction you go, most of the guys they brought in the draft have been like third round or lower guys. A truly top end wide receiver that can step in immediately. I think Judy would be much more uh, beneficial, much more of a compliment, as a number two. But, I don't know, what a lot of it depends on how the rest of this year goes. If he just emerges that he's that guy you can go to when the game's on the line, game in, game out, so be it. That'd be good. But I think the Browns, could add another. I don't know if Elijah Moore is the answer. I don't know if they'll even try to bring him back. He's a nice kid. But I haven't really seen the blazing speed because he can never seem to break a tackle or get open enough to, run away from anybody. I don't know what the reason is, but it seems like he catches the ball and he goes down immediately. So
Yeah.
he's had more production recent weeks with Winston, but it hasn't been like, his yards per catch or, they're down like 8.1. That's not what I envision. That's more like a possession receiver, not
Right.
from a guy who was known for having blazing 4.3 speed.
Yeah, he hasn't exactly been what we expected when the Browns first acquired him. That's for sure. But he's looked a lot better this year, especially since the change of quarterback. Question from Amatora. He says, looking at the offensive line this offseason, who returns, who leaves, what positions are we adding? What sort of changes do you expect on the offensive line this year, Fred?
I think a lot depends on Batonio.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is he going to return? Is he going to retire? What they thought of Whippler. They drafted him. Usually, those are going to be your heir apparent. They cut, Nick Harris, who was originally going to be the heir apparent at center. So you have to feel they liked Whippler better. Obviously, when Whippler got hurt, they brought Harris back. Then he got
Right.
hurt. So I don't know if they saw enough with Whippler. Obviously, didn't get to play to get developed. I think they would try to move on from Posick if they can. Um, I don't know what, with Teller. I just don't know if you're going to overhaul the whole group at once. They brought in Zach Zinner for a reason. You draft him in third round. He's got to be a starter. Maybe he got thrown in early and was a little overwhelmed. We haven't seen him much lately. So I have to have high hopes that guy, who's the captain of a great Michigan offensive line, has got some talent when he figures it out.
Mm-hmm.
So Whippler and Zinter to me are keys. And then, Javian Cohen, guys like that. Do you think they're ready? Or, we're not seeing much of them because you got the veterans out there, but you got to get the tackle situation figured out. I am guessing that they feel good enough about DeJuan Jones at left tackle. Jack Conklin's under contract. I like a lot what I saw the other night. He shut down TJ Watt, and he
Yeah.
had Watt the whole game. The second half, even Stefanski said it wasn't fair for Garrett or those guys in the pass rush because they didn't have footing. But in the first half, when Garrett got his 3 sacks, Mr. Watt didn't have anything. He had 1 tackle for loss. So that bodes well. We know that offensive linemen can play, into their 30s. I'm not sure exactly how old Conklin is, but I believe he's still under contract. He's got a big contract, I
Mm-hmm.
think, even for next year. So if he can hold down right tackle and you got DeJuan Jones at left tackle healthy, I think you have a lot of options then to fill out the inside, whether it's Teller and Zinter and Whippler or a free agent at one of those or whatever, um, or even drafting somebody in the inside. So I think they have options, but I think the key's the tackles. The tackles have really been the problem, with Jed Wills being out, then Hudson, and then you get a little of DeJuan Jones, and it's just then you go to Jermaine Afidi, and you just haven't had stability at all, with five guys.
Yeah, yeah, and that's been obviously a huge challenge in the Browns' rushing game. I think shows that. A question from World's Fastest. He says, "Fred, have any of the Browns officials given any sort of hint or vibe about offseason plans or direction? Is Winston gaining favor? Do you think that we will invest in alignment?" We talked about that. Any hints at all from the Browns officials about their direction heading into the offseason?
Well, the only hint, and it's really not a hint, it's a not answering the question. So that's a hint. When Andrew Berry was asked about Deshaun Watson, is he going to come back as your starter? When he had the shoulder injury, it was no hesitation. He's our starting quarterback when he comes back. His answer, two or three different directions, was first of all, he's got to get healthy, and then we'll evaluate and talk about it then. So he didn't say, yeah, he's our starting quarterback, despite all the money and everything there. Um, in fairness, they can't really honestly answer these questions because first off, you got $100 million investment. I don't care if you have a house that's garbage heap, you're not going to say this is the worst house in the world. This is garbage. You want to
Right.
buy it?
Exactly.
Not that he's marketable, but plus you, unless you've already made the decision that you have a better option and it's starting to look like you have better options,
Mm-hmm.
you got to be mum about it because you're also letting other teams know everything that you're doing,
Yeah.
and they're very quiet on those things. So no, I think Winston is gaining traction. It's just all the questions even asked the other day, Stefanski, what about Daniel Jones, bringing him in? Well, I'm not going to go there. And um, that's about the best you can get. And I understand that. It's like you're playing your cards. It's like the last year Baker Mayfield was here. If they would have said, no, we're getting rid of him no matter what, they gave him the 5th year option, even though they pretty much, I think, were moving on from him if they could. Um, Gave every indication they were not. And so, yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting the last press conference with Andrew Berry,
Mm-hmm.
if he even says anything, because still, even at the end of the season, unless Winston, that's what I said, this would make the decision easy. If you, if Winston proves he can be the guy and you can come to agreement with him before he goes out as a free agent, then you can say, well, Watson's coming back to compete for the job, but we're not anointing him the starter. And
Right.
then you can make him inactive for every game and ride it out.
Right. Well, as much as I'm enjoying the Browns conversation, I have some web dorkian duties to to do. And first thing I should probably do, which is long overdue, is announce the winners of our OBR free VIP membership giveaway that we've been doing for the last 4 days or so. Any registered member of the OBR could participate in this. And we randomly selected 10 people. Actually, it turned out to be 11 because my algorithms got screwed up. But what the heck? We have 11 winners of our free giveaway. And they will win a 1 year VIP membership to the OBR. So they can try that out and join us in Ask the Insiders and Insider Discussion and our upcoming VIP Discord. Ian, can you put that list up on the screen? And here are our winners. So if you are watching, you already have VIP access. And if you don't, reach out to me and bug me because I screwed something up. So you all have complimentary 1 year subscriptions to the OBR. And we hope you enjoy them. And we hope to hear from you in our VIP forums and chat with you and answer your questions in there. And we hope you enjoy your 1 year VIP membership to the OBR. And if you are not a winner, we also have good news because starting tomorrow, we are launching our biggest sale of the year, which is 75% off a VIP annual membership. So you practically can buy into VIP for nothing starting tomorrow through Cyber Monday. So for the next week, we are offering 75% off a VIP membership. It is our best deal of the year. It is our lowest deal of the year. And if you want to get in as a VIP member with this huge off season coming up, now is the time. Not now, starting tomorrow morning is the time to get in and become a VIP member of the OBR. I'm telling you, it doesn't get any better than this. So, jump in if you're at all interested in becoming a VIP member. And for VIPs only, if you want to be a VIP when it comes to your physical conditioning, you have to check out Core Home Fitness, the sponsors of the OBR. These are the people who allow you to bring the gym home with their adjustable dumbbells, their lifting equipment, their benches, all the great stuff that they do to get you swole, to get you healthy. They've also got tons of videos on their website at corehomefitness.com showing you how to use it, showing you how to get in good shape. You've heard me talk about them all year long, how great their customer support is, how great their shipping, their hassle-free returns, all that sort of stuff. This is just a good business. These guys just know what they're doing, and they've stood up to support the OBR and allowed us to expand our programming to 5 days a week here on YouTube and on Twitch. And we really, really appreciate the support that they've shown us, a small independent provider of Cleveland Browns content. They make a great product. We hope that you visit their website at corehomefitness.com and support them like you've been supporting us. So thank you to corehomefitness.com and their great equipment. So I'm going to go back to the check. King of all blunders, where's finding? I didn't see you enter. You got to enter in order to get into this. But world's fastest says Core Home Fitness is an unfair advantage in the world of getting swole. Get gains with Core Home Fitness. Darn right. My favorite assistant in the world of advertising, Core Home Fitness there, world's fastest fat man. Thank you for your help. All right. So let's go back to the questions. Fumble13 wants to know about your draft preparation, Fred, whether you rank players going into the draft. Are you setting up a list of your top 50 here in the coming weeks and months?
No, truth be told, the last few years, they haven't had a first round pick. That's right. What I usually hone in on because I've done mock drafts and, or even trying to predict the first round. You get past like the first 10 and it's totally all haywire, once somebody goes out of order. But I hone in on the first round, second round, and just kind of come up with players I think would fit the Browns. But I leave that to draft experts that are into it. I'm just not into watching eons of college football games of teams I'm not interested in. I do when the Browns have a first round pick and it's projected to be high. I'll watch some of the top name quarterbacks. I did the year that we knew they were going to draft a quarterback, and I watched a lot of games of Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold and Allen and Rosen and Jackson, some of those guys. But the other night I turned on Alabama, see Milrow a little more. Wasn't too impressed with him, but I saw a little bit of Sanders, and it's too far away right now. Just trying to get some casual. But to answer your question, no, I really don't. I'm just kind of like, I know it doesn't matter who I think they should take because they never take who I think they should take. And, like Johnny Manziel was like the last guy on the list I wanted, but they drafted him. I write about him. I provide, unbiased coverage and so forth. So, yeah, it's pretty much out of my control until they start asking me who I think they should take. I probably won't get too involved because you end up putting too much emotion into something, and then you're upset when it doesn't go the way you think it should go. Like, oh, I know more than they do. I'm relying on them to know more than I do. And unfortunately, the year I said with those two picks, take Khalil Mack and Derek Carr, they took Justin Gilbert and Johnny Manziel, I think.
Right.
And it's like the Raiders went to the playoffs in the second year with those guys. It's just
if only they
okay.
Yep. If only you and Ray Farmer had been able to change places, we would be in a much different situation right now with these Cleveland Browns than we were forced to live with, unfortunately.
So you just get frustrated, So why put yourself through that frustration when you tell them what they should do and they don't do it?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm glad they don't listen to me in most cases. I'm happy that they listen to me with Michael Hall, but obviously they were listening to me as I was pushing for Michael Hall all off season. But Milrow, there's something going on with Milrow because when I watch him, he does not look like he's ready for the NFL whatsoever. And when I don't watch him, he has a fantastic game. So maybe there's like a mystical connection there because when I watch him, he does not look like a guy who's ready for the NFL at all. I remember that same year that you were talking about with Rosen and Darnold and a bunch of guys who, did not seem like the answer at quarterback. And I remember watching USC, UCLA, and I came out of that game convinced that Jacob Rosen was going to be an NFL quarterback and Sam Darnold was not ready for the NFL whatsoever, which is exactly why you don't ask me for my opinion on quarterbacks, because it is very, very difficult to assess quarterbacks' readiness for the NFL, and I'm certainly not up to it. But I do have a major lead here that Jacob may have a major mock draft coming up this weekend. So you got that going for you. We hired a guy, Jacob Roach, who is very focused on the draft, who is writing for us year round now on the OBR. So you've got that sort of content going for you.
We got the big Michigan game this week for the Buckeyes. I'll tell you what, won me over that after they picked Mayfield, because I was like you, I watched that USC and I had the same thing. Rosen looked good, but then I kind of started going the direction of Darnold. And when they picked Mayfield, one of the reasons I didn't like him because he ate the Buckeyes up and spit them out, in that season, and he put the flag on the center of the field. And then I thought I wrote off the Darnold because when the Buckeyes ate him up in that bowl game, I said, yeah, but the Buckeyes got like a NFL defense. I mean, I think they had Denzel Ward, guys like that playing. They're just intercepting him left and right. And I'm saying he is playing against the Buckeyes, one of the best defenses. Then I started thinking about it after they drafted Mayfield, and I said, Mayfield had his way with the Buckeyes. Maybe he would be the better choice because Darnold did not against the same defense. So that's what kind of convinced me after they picked him that maybe he was the choice. So that's just my anecdotal after the fact analysis. So
you're bringing up bad memories for me, Fred. That whole
you can have a good memory if they just do their job this week.
Exactly. All they have to do is beat Indiana, Michigan, and Oregon in successive weeks, and they get a bye in the college football playoffs. No
Would you
problem.
rather lose to Oregon in the championship for the conference, but beat them in the playoffs, or win this one and lose the next time?
Playoffs
Yeah, I
is what
think.
matter, man. They got to win that national championship.
Well,
That's
then
how they'll be measured.
I don't think they're going to leave you out if you beat Michigan and lose to Oregon in the Big Ten game. Still get in, then you beat Oregon. That's what I'd rather them win that game the third time than win the Big Ten championship and then lose in the title. Sure, it'd be great to win them both.
Well, each year I have to pick a Cleveland or an Ohio State Buckeye that I absolutely want the Cleveland Browns to pick in the draft. And this year, that guy is TreVeyon Henderson. I absolutely want the Browns to pick TreVeyon Henderson.
I got one, no doubt. I told my son this the other day.
Who's that?
Caleb Downs.
Yeah.
That safety is a bad dude. And he would instantly put that defense. I don't think you'd have some of those plays that we've been seeing in the back end. I think he would be a Pro Bowler early in his career.
Yeah, he's a Tasmanian devil.
But he'll probably go to the Steelers.
Yeah.
Seems like Buckeyes always end up there, and then you kind of hate them when you liked them in college.
And it's been pointed out that he can't actually come out for another year. He's only a true sophomore. That's what our producer tells us. And he's very knowledgeable about these things.
It doesn't matter when. I'm saying whenever I wasn't saying this year. I'm saying he's going to be a great player in the NFL.
He'll be another Palomalu. It's the way it's trending right now. And somehow the Steelers will somehow trade up or suck enough that year to get him. It just seems to be inevitable, Fred. But that's the way it goes. So let's talk quarterback, because someone asked this question and asked the insiders, and I want to get your reaction. I want to see if those AirPods pop out of your ears when I ask you this question. Let's say for a minute that Watson's not going to play next year for when because his Achilles isn't going to heal. That they need a bridge quarterback, and let's further speculate that Jameis Winston prices himself out of our market because he plays so well down the stretch. There's a guy coming who may come available. Currently playing for the New York Jets, older gentleman, used to star in State Farm commercials. Name is Aaron Rodgers. Currently dodging medical tests because he's afraid that he'll be sidelined if he doesn't. And we got a question in Ask the Insiders that said, "I don't want to be this guy, but I'm going to be this guy. If Aaron Rodgers gets released, do the Browns sniff in his direction for a year?" What do you think? I've already seen.
I don't think
answers
so.
In the chat.
I might have said that a couple years ago when he was, with the Green Bay.
Yeah.
But I think this team showed us this year. Yeah, with better quarterback play, they'd have been, better. But I don't know if they'd be that much better. That he's not playing what I've seen, the level he was when he was taking an average team to great heights. I think the Jets have a lot of problems, but he hasn't risen above that. Whether it's the Achilles is still, if you remember, he had kind of a quick fix surgery that allowed him to be back in 6-7 months. And I don't know if his problems are with the leg or what, but no, I just don't think there's way too much drama. I mean, he's in his prime. He can demand, I want this guy and this guy. But I mean, they moved heaven and earth to get Devontae Adams and, Mike Williams in the offseason, who they moved on. And a lot of the guys he had in Green Bay, Lazard and different ones. And I just think that's too far down the road. I think the Browns, if Winston shows what he can do, I don't think he's going to price himself out of the market. I think the Browns would figure out a way to do what they always do, even if you sign them and restructure and those. I think they're good at that end of the bargain,
Right.
and
Right.
I think that's a good problem if he plays so well that he legitimately prices, because that shows that you can. It's time to move on from Watson and not look back. You got a guy here that's only a year older than the guy you thought was going to be your 10-year answer at quarterback.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I don't know, and I'm not an apologist from Winston. I've only seen 4 games, but it just seems like everybody's looking past that option of thinking he's any good. And what I've
Mm.
seen is way better than the other options we've had in recent years. I mean,
Right. He did. There were issues against the Chargers. For sure.
they
I
got
think he's
behind 20-3 because the defense. So he's not good throwing every down. That's what it seemed like he was doing. If I remember right, it was in the second half and he's just throwing his interceptions like boom, boom,
mm,
boom. Yeah, that was a problem. And you're going to have
right.
to live with that. But you had that with Flacco. You had that in the playoff game. You know,
Yep. Yeah.
you
And
had
he made what I think are admittedly some beautiful throws against the Steelers. I mean, just some great throws against the Steelers. And I think the Chargers really surprised them. They weren't expecting that secondary to be as good as it was against them. And the Chargers obviously have a very good defensive front, and so they put up a pretty good defense against them.
say what
But
you will, but Jim Harbaugh's no dummy. He waited until the team had an opening with a franchise quarterback. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
most of the time you go places, you're getting, the first pick in the draft and you're hoping to draft somebody.
right,
He knew Justin Herbert was an elite quarterback and they had a defensive minded coach before, and he's brought what he does. And I think Chargers are going to be one of the final teams. They're going to make the playoffs, I think.
Well, I tell you, I counted 9 no's in the first 3 chat messages after I mentioned Aaron Rodgers. So that probably tells you something. Sancho Bermuda asks, and maybe Brad Ward can tell us a little bit more. Brad Ward is now El Capitan of our video schedule. He wants to know what OBR's schedule and plan is this week leading up to game day. I can tell you, Fred and I will not be back Wednesday or next Monday because the Browns will be playing a game next Monday at this time. So we will not be doing OBR Weekly at this time. We'll do a pregame before that game like we typically would on a Monday. But Brad will have the rest of the week's schedule available. And we'll let you know via social media what that looks like. The rest of this week as we head into Thanksgiving and all that. So he's in the chat, so he sees this request. And I'm sorry, I just don't think many people will be watching Fred and I on YouTube, and Fred and I will be watching the game. So we're going to be slackers. I'm sorry, Fat Man. So that's it for tonight. We are going to wrap things up here, and we hope that you all have a very good Thanksgiving, a very good holiday, and we will see you in a couple of weeks on this show. But Fred and I will undoubtedly pop in pre or post games. You'll see us somewhere on this OBR streaming network between now and then, I'm sure. And thank you for hanging out with us. Thanks for the questions in the chat room. All the fun as usual. We will see you soon again here on OBR Weekly. Good night, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving, all of you. Thank you for watching.